Hey family, welcome back to another round of My Patriot Report Live. I am the bridge connecting the next generation of federal contracting. I am Rituan Hill. And with me, I have the nation's leading subject matter expert when it comes to government contracting, individual responsible for over $19 billion annually for the service disabled veteran-owned small business community, the first service disabled veteran-owned small business national spokesperson, and responsible for co-authoring the legislation that created the SBA All Small Business Mentor Protege Program, Mr. Walter Cotton III. Mr. Cotton, how you doing this lovely Wednesday?
I am well. It's hump day. It's hump day.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Let's just get right into it, right? We've been beating the drum on the We the People movement, and we have to pretty much take the reins on this and take control of this narrative that's going on. Now, the director of the National Counterterrorism Center, Mr. Joe Kent, he resigned yesterday, right? And just to give a back to the audience, the background, if they don't know, he was a Green Beret in the Army, 10 plus combat deployments. His wife was murdered in an attack in Syria. So this guy has some, real war scars, and he's saying that what we're doing with Iran is unjust, and it's going to cause direct harm to the people in the United States. Are we seeing a signal that people are waking up and it's starting to be like a divide within that administration, meaning the Trump administration?
I think that we are starting to reach that point of, what's that section in that fairy tale about the emperor's new suit, right? Where, we get some common knowledge understanding, right? The little girl points at the emperor and says, hey, he has no clothes on. So, I mean, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to look at the evidence that we are getting out of the administration and recognize that, or in order for us to recognize rather, that we're dealing with a war of choice. And the issue here is choice, right? The kind of choices that the individual that we have endorsed as the commander in chief have been making of late have been suspect across a number of domains. And this domain, which includes the collateral, which is human life, it is one that we cannot ignore, and we do not need to wait for the mainstream media to tell us that something needs to be done. And so when you see a defection, like the individual that was, once endorsed as the leader of counterintelligence, right? Yeah. Able to assess, right, where things were moving. You see that type of a departure. One must stand up and take notice. But again, it doesn't take a rocket scientist, right, to look at the condition that we're in and see that the arc of performance, right? The trajectory of the arc of performance is not moving in a direction that's commensurate with the desires of these United States of America. And therefore, we, the people, we don't need to wait for someone to give us permission, right? We need to stand up today and we need to do something. And the something that we need to do is not get stupid human awards going out there protesting in the street, right? We need to be strategic about this, right? We need to be thinking about how we move that arc of performance so that it's going back towards a plateau of peace, right? We need to move that economic arc of performance to a place where, we are considered, again, the kinder, gentler nation on that global, right, marketplace, right? We, the people, have the ability now to have our voice, have our feelings known. And I think it's imperative, it is critical that we follow this young man's example. And if we see something, we don't just say something, we do something.
Yes, sir. Okay, and now we kind of touched on about people just individually just taking charge and saying something and doing something, but what are some of the actual steps that we could take? Is it during the midterms where we kind of try to take control of the narrative? Like, is it a letter we're sending in, or like what are the actual actionable steps we could take?
Well, those things are important, right? And I think that we need to be focusing some attention on the midterms, and I've made it my commitment to make sure that those people that should be elected get elected during this particular midterm. But at the end of the day, I see the elections also as a symptom of a deeper root cause problem that needs to be addressed, and we've got to take a look at whether or not we have lost our moorings as a nation, right? We have to take a look and see whether or not the intentions and interest of the four founders that 250 years ago created this place that would take what the rest of the world considered as refuge and turn them into citizens of one of the greatest nations in the world. We need to take a inventory, I think, of who we are as Americans, right? We need to take a look and determine whether or not we want to be seen as the bullies on the billionaire block, right? We need to decide how our brand is going to be represented on a world stage, and I think that's the underlying root cause problem we need to resolve.
Do you think we're burning bridges with other countries? Because the president, he made a comment, I believe yesterday or the day before yesterday, where he was pretty much saying we don't really need you guys. We're just pretty much opening the arms and extending. Then I believe the prime minister of France pretty much was like, this is not a war we want to fight. Like, so are we burning bridges in this process?
This isn't a commentary, at least the one that I'm delivering, that's about an individual, because
Right.
I do believe that individuals have the ability to burn bridges that can't be repaired. But our nation has a need right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't believe that our nation at this particular point has burned any bridges. But if we, the people, allow a small group of individuals to mute our voice so that the world doesn't understand what our position is, what our intention is, then the bridges that are being burned by the individual will be associated with the collective. History, I think, will paint that fine a brush.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Now let's transition a little bit. Now I want to talk about once again, they're looking to pass a bill for the veterans, a contracting goal government wide for veteran-owned small business is now. Are we looking at a pump fake, or are we looking at a midterm election movement? I mean, either way, it's still good that's always introduced in the House of Senate again. But
No. I believe that the House and the Senate got the memo, right? They saw the good work that Bill Elmore and a number of other veterans did over the past 2 years. They saw the procedural misstep by the Senate not to ratify that veteran-owned contracting goal. And so they've stepped forward. They've leaned forward into the process. And so I've been saying this for some time.
yeah, it definitely
Here's
was.
an example of empirical evidence of this nation wanting you to be rich if you are a veteran or a disabled veteran. And all you got to do is take a look at the information that got leaked out of the SBA scorecard planning session, which is utilizing special consideration to push the disabled veteran and the veterans into a broader contracting position. And now what we're seeing out of the House and the Senate in the form of a mirrored set of bills that are designed to create a contracting program for veteran-owned small businesses government-wide. Ratwan, Mr. Hill, I would submit to you that it's a fait accompli. And if you are a veteran-owned small business or a veteran, you may want to consider doing business with Uncle Sam.
Yes, sir. And so so the SBA scorecard methodology, you believe that, do you believe that that was their telegraphing and them understanding like, okay, it got to have some meat to it, meaning it has to have some statute that backs it so that the agencies can actually enforce this?
I was concerned, and I think I might have even given voice to that in one of our earlier telecasts, that, the leak that I saw out of the SBA was concerning because the scorecard, right,
Mm-hmm.
without a contracting program would have just taken us back to 1999 when Public Law 10650 was passed, right, where they put a goal out there for the disabled veterans, but they didn't give them any tools. And I was concerned that this might be a similar event. But then I got a whisper word, my little ling-a-ling-a-ling-a-ling. And they said, hey, no, this is real. And I said, well, prove it to me. And they showed me. And you know how they showed me? When you look at legislation, right, the way laws are made, right, we have a unique process, right? And our forefathers thought this one through, right? Because they've got two different branches of Congress, right? We've got the House, right? And then we got the Senate, right? And the Senate is designed to manage the strategic directory or trajectory of the nation, whereas the House is designed to manage the transactional trajectory of the nation. And so the forefathers said, if these two branches of government could come up with a need for the people and they could agree on it, right, that need could be furthered as a law. It could be furthered as a bill that's passed and sent to the president and signed into law. Follow me on this, right? This is a little bit of a civics lesson, but it's important to understand because it'll explain how unique the position we are in with this veteran legislation. So in normal parlance, what has to happen is someone in the House has to come up with a bill that meets the needs of constituents. And then the Senate has to come up with a mirrored bill, the exact same language, right? That's like Halley's Comet passing the sun, right? It doesn't happen naturally, organically. That's what we have right now in the House and Senate as it relates to this veteran law. There is a bill that was introduced into the House that already mirrors the bill that has been introduced in the Senate. And so what that is, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, that's just the whisper word to let us know that a friendly Congress wants to fulfill their word, right? They gave us their word and said that they were going to create that whole of government contracting program. They were going to start with DOD, and they've doubled down on it, and it's apparently about to happen. So if you're a veteran, man, you need to get ready. You really need to get ready, because there's a sole source authority provision in that legislation that, if I'm smelling what they're cooking, right, they're looking to reward him and her who bored the battle. And if you listen to that interview with Rob Wong and Sam Lee, what they said was, taking that 8A sole source authority away is going to restrict the government's ability to deliver against the constitutional requirement that they have of getting the entire budget out in the fiscal year. Oh my goodness, if they're expanding the sole source capability of the veteran, I would submit that that's a telegraph of something that's about to happen.
Yes, sir. And when you said that, the first thing that popped in my mind, I remember it was a while back when we were looking at with the DEI. It had the language already mirrored in the House and Senate, and you told me that you said you could guarantee it because that's something that doesn't happen too often. If it's already approved in the Senate and the House, that that's pretty much a telltale sign that that's already approved. And sure enough.
So, I mean, basically what we can say to, every, patriot, every veteran, get ready, get ready, get ready. because you are going to be able to benefit from the inroads that we as service disabled veterans have already made to demonstrate to the agencies that we can handle big things, right? We can handle $1 million, $1 billion contracts. So we are here, us disabled veterans that have already moved this needle well past $19 billion and exceeded the goal. We're here to help mentor you across this process. And so we don't want you to get any wooden nickels by going down pathways that we've already proven are ineffective, are feckless, right? And we want you to make sure that you get connected with a community of practice that can help you become the heroes that this nation needs, right? This nation needs us veterans to come back into service, to reshore our manufacturing assets, to revitalize our supply chain, to balance the economic power so that everybody in America has an opportunity more fully participate in the American dream. But I'm standing on my soapbox, Mr. Hill. I apologize.
No, that's all good. Yeah, I know you always dropping gems, so I know they appreciate that, or they should appreciate that information. It might go over a lot of people's heads. But when you said the 8A sole source and they're taking away that mechanism, right? And I believe it was last Friday where I pulled up the graph. I should have had it up, but anyways, it was for the expiring contracts for the next 2 years. I believe it was 14 billion in 8A sole source. So what I'm looking at from a strategic standpoint, you telling me is those 8A sole source contracts that are expiring in the next 2 years at 14 billion. That's pretty much a honeypot for veterans to be in there, just to be able to, take those opportunities or be in position to grab those opportunities if they're contract ready and contract viable.
Well, you don't have to be a Wayne Gretzky of GovCon to figure this one out, right?
Yeah.
If the concern is that there is fraud, waste, and abuse in the 8A program, there's concern that there is unconstitutionality of race-based contracting under the small disadvantaged business program, and that program gets attacked with lawsuits and entire agencies like the Minority Business Development Agency gets sunset in a season where him and her who bore the battle is now being enriched with a new set of programs. Right? I would read that to say we have greater confidence that this group of patriots who've already demonstrated their commitment to the nation won't do the kind of fraud, waste, and abuse that these people have done. And so, I mean, I could be reading this all wrong, but if I'm a veteran, right, I'm going out there and I'm doing what is necessary to meet my customer at their value threshold, because my customer is telling me, if you bring this, I'm giving you the first mover's advantage.
Yeah. Enough said. Now, I did want to touch on something a little bit. Now, I've talked to individuals from the 1102 community, and and what I always see a lot of new entrants do is that they're looking on SAM and they're going after the RFPs, but the truth of the matter is that a lot of times those RFPs that are out, they're pretty much most of the time already the 1102s already know who those opportunities are going after, or who those opportunities are going to.
Everybody,
Yeah.
everybody. And if you don't know, listen to me loud and clear. By the time a requirement gets publicized in one of the public vehicles, the awardee has already been decided. That was yesterday's paradigm.
Yeah.
In today's paradigm, and the dust is still settling on what it's going to look like as we centralize requirements under the federal government's purchasing agent. We start more liberally utilizing mandatory vehicles and category management. Tomorrow's paradigm may be an access issue, right? If you're not on the contract, you can't even get into the business. And so the 1102 community yesterday aren't the bellwether, right? They aren't the source of information that they used to be, and that's by design, I think, also, right? Because you got to really look at what happened as a result of this Doge movement that moved through the federal space, right? It not only took a lot of data and stuff like that and moved it into places that maybe it shouldn't be, but it took a lot of talent and did the same thing to it, right? There are a lot of seasoned 1102s that saw the whisper word and they saw the writing on the wall and they took the deal. They took the early buyout, right? These were seasoned contracting officers, right? These are SESs and the like, right? That knew, how to bend the rule without breaking it, right? And get that $100 or $500 billion budget delivered on time. They're gone. And now you've got a younger cadre of 1102s being managed by people that may not have been prepared to be promoted to the next level, right? You got some Peter Principle challenges going on. That's a situation where people are promoted to inefficiency, and all of that's happening right now when we're in the throes of a war where we need to have our industrial base engaged to support the warfighter. Folks, don't get me started. We, the people, need to wake up and smell the coffee. We cannot rely on the media. We can't rely on the government. We have the authority to put systems and procedures in place to protect ourselves and this nation. And I'm encouraging you to join me as we do this.
Yes. So what I'm hearing you say is that we just need to approach this from a collaborative effort and help them come to their own self-knowledge of understanding what they can and can't do. Because what I was thinking about was the executive order 14240 and the fact that, they do have, if they're following an order that is unconstitutional or not statute, that they have the power to essentially say no.
Yeah, and the executive 14240 that you're talking about was the president's assertion that we should centralize contracting under the federal government's purchasing agent, and what you're specifically speaking to is language in statute that holds our contracting officers, right? It holds our civil servants personally liable for participating in a legal action that they knew and had the ability to prevent but didn't prevent. So to say that another way is you're currently being asked to take actions that's putting you and your family in harm's way. And I encourage you aggressively to take a look at the language under 42 USC 1986. And the next time somebody asks you to do something that you in your professional authority know is not in the best interest of the mission that you're driving, for you to put that language on the table and say, no, I'm not going to do that because of this. We have the right to do that. We as citizens have the right to protect ourselves, just like the servicemen and women, right, have Article 19, I think, under the Uniform Code of Military Justice that allows them not to follow an illegal order that comes from a superior officer. So at the end of the day, what I'm saying to everybody that's within the sound of my voice is to wake up, right? This isn't some foreign country. This is America. And in America, we live in a constitutional republic where your voice matters. And if you understand what your rights are, you'll recognize that there are enough laws and rules on the books right now that put me in a position to not have to ask anybody for permission to do the things that I'm saying. And that's why I can say to Mr. President Donald Trump, sir, rein it in, rein it in, rein it in. You need to rein it in. You need to rein it in, because if you don't rein it in we the people will.
Mhm. Is economic participation pretty much the real form of power today?
We live in a society that's based on the golden rule. He who has the goal rules. So yes is the answer to the question. And that's the other reason why we are so hyper focused on making sure that him and her who bore the battle has the opportunity to more robustly and fully participate in the contracting actions that come out of the federal government, right? We believe that if we've got more patriots, right, that are delivering goods and services into the mission, right, we will have a standard of performance that isn't based on nepotism. It's not based on favoritism. It's not based on bribery, right? But it's based on utilitarian principles. And that's why we're eagerly asking our veteran brethren to get ready to duplicate what we've done on the service disabled veteran side of the equation, right? We're drilling into about 4% of the budget right now, right? And we want to get as high. I think the new scorecard hint suggested 15%. Right. We want to get 15% of the federal budget under veteran and disabled veteran control. And what will happen after that? We will have proven to the country that we can handle more. And then we can go back to Congress and lean forward into their policy to utilize small businesses to the maximum extent practicable. If we expand our practicability, it's my belief that we can utilize the existing settled law to more fully support the nation. So what say to you? What say you, my fellow veterans? Won't you join me on this mission?
Yes, sir. And for the veterans who don't have the direction of what to do, can you talk? We've mentioned about the Joseph Todd Mulvaney Scholarship. And is that the opportunity where veterans could get a little cotton in their ear, veterans and service disabled veterans?
Yeah, that is excuse me, I get a little choked up when I think about my buddy Todd. That is a place where veterans are going to be able to get a little cotton in their ear. But you know what? We got to let the cat out of the bag, right? We're not one for holding secrets. We bumped into an innovation, right? Technology is just disrupting the landscape across the board. And we ran into a solution that has empowered us to do something that we weren't able to do because our vendors were keeping the price point that they were charging us so high. This solution allows us to almost eliminate our vendors' price point. And therefore, the course that I was required to deliver to market at over $10,000, we're going to be able to demonstratively reduce that cost. And so on Friday, we are going to tell you about a price point change that is happening to the cotton method that you'll want to learn about.
Yes, sir. And this is the first time you revamping the cotton method for this season since was like 10 plus 15 years. Is that?
Yeah, it's been about 15 years since I've updated that solution because it didn't need any updating, but we've had a material change in the theater. So not only are you going to get the new and improved version of the cotton method, but you're going to get it enabled with technology that's going to revolutionize your business as well. So holla at us on Friday, right? We see y'all back here. Y'all come on back now. You hear?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, and please subscribe, hit the like button, repost, share, and also you go to the website below. That's going across the screen if you want to get a little cotton in your ear, and we'll catch you guys on Friday. I am Ratwan Hill, and that is the Mr. Walter Cotton III. Until next time, guys.